Welcome to the COVID and Beyond webinar, where I have a chance to speak to one of the foremost voices in South African politics at the moment. He's the former mayor of Johannesburg. Mr. Mashaba, I know that you've written this open letter to Tito Mboweni, and you also encouraged the president initially in your first open letter to try and make decisions that benefit the majority of South Africans and also safeguard the future of the majority of South Africans by supporting small to medium enterprises. Now, you've also been a very, very stern critic of government inefficiencies. You've been a stern critic of government's performance since democracy in 1994. I'm just wondering, though, I mean, you're basically putting an allegation to government now that they are implementing a covert plan to collapse the economy amid COVID-19. Do you really believe that they have this capacity, that they have the ability to try and implement something that would really take a lot of not only know-how, but efficiency, if their own performance in government since 1994 has been, as you put it, completely dismal and inefficient?
You know, Nicholas, this ANC patronage network and mismanagement in terms of the collapse of the economy, I don't think they actually realize that their actions are ultimately going to lead to the collapse of the economy. Because that's what they were taught by the Soviet Union, because communism is about the control of society. It's about making society poor, because when the society is poor, it is easy to control them. I'm sure to you guys as academics, you must have read what the communist systems have done, from the days of when Stalin took over after Lenin's death. You know what Mao did in China. It's about keeping people poor, dependent on the state. But one thing that ANC does not realize is that, yes, you can make us poor, you can make us dependent on the state, but in the process, the economy collapses. I don't know why they don't really go back to Russia, go back to the Chinese. Obviously, they did not have contact with the Chinese, but there's so much written about how China nearly collapsed during Mao's time when it was coming out with this communist socialist tendencies. They have very close connections with the Russians. The Russians can actually re-educate them, because the policies that ANC wants to practice today, I can tell you that in the libraries of the Russians, those policies, no one in Russia wants to actually touch them, because what will happen eventually is that when you want people poor and dependent on the state, you are not going to have the economy that they can steal from, because the whole idea from them, as I say, while we are poor and dependent on them, it gives the leadership of the Communist Party, or this, whatever you'd like to really call it, an opportunity to steal, because what they do in the process, they destroy our criminal justice system. As you are aware, in this country, I don't know if we still have the criminal justice system. Yes, we do have it for petty crimes. For a poor guy in Alexander who cannot afford to put bread on the table, he goes out and steal bread. Those are the guys that are going to land in jail. But criminal elements, the big criminal syndicates will never really go to jail, because they're part of this whole network. Now, what's going to happen? The economy, if you're not going to have commercial activity, government is not going to really have revenue any longer. You remember the Commissioner of South African Revenue Services had a press conference a few weeks ago to indicate to government and society that already is focusing 285 billion rand shortfall on his limited budget. And I can assure you, as South Africans, it's going to be much worse than 285 billion rand. So I'm really, and that's what I was saying in my letter. I said in my letter to Tito Mboweni, because we're expecting him to present his budget on the 24th of this month. He needs to reflect this 285 billion rand, and I can assure you it should be worse. And now the other issue that I think we need to really bear in mind as South Africans is what the president misled us as society, I think about a month or so ago, when he stood in front of the nation, made us wait for him to tell us about a 500 billion rand stimulus package. Immediately the following day, they wrote a press statement to query what the president was saying. Because what is stimulus package, Nicholas and fellow South Africans? Stimulus package is when you have 10 rands, an existing 10 rands, you have a crisis, you need more money to come into that. But you can't tell me you're taking this 10 rands, reprioritize, restructure it, and you call that stimulus package. Because there's no money that's actually coming from outside. The only money that is supposed to come out, when the president presented to us the money from the IMF, the money from the World Bank and the other agencies, the president came out as if that money was already in the bank or the contracts were already signed. Few days later, National Treasury came out to confirm, because I'm one of the South Africans who wanted clarity on this money coming from the banks. Says, Mr. President, how much have you raised from this bank, and under which terms? You remember a few days later they said to us that they're still negotiating. The negotiations will take 5 to 6 weeks. So the money is that stimulus package that the president stood in front of the nation as if there's a 500 billion rand stimulus package. The second one, you remember with the banks, the 200 billion rands coming from the banks. Got together with the banks, look at what was already in the system in terms of funding by the banks. This is not stimulus package. These were deals which are already in the system. And one thing that is certain is that the banks will only proceed with those transactions on condition that those businesses are viable. Because no bank in the world, unless in a communist environment where they want to steal the money, will finance a transaction that is not financially viable. And if you look at what has happened to our economy over the last 3 months, I can tell you a big percentage of those transactions are no longer going to be fundable. And how much has already 200 million rands? In fact, that one where you're talking about intervention for poor people, how much of it has already been dispersed? The other day, last week, I heard the Minister of Social Development, out of what, 6-7 million people who are supposed to be recipient of this, only 10 people had already been given this 350 rand. So we are really living in a world where the government is actually prepared to treat us like we're small children. We don't know what is happening.
Mr. Mashaba, you make a plea directly to Tito Mboweni, and in your letter you mentioned that he's fairly independent of thought. Do you believe that he has the power within government, the power within the ANC to not only come to this realization but also chart a different path?
Yeah, you know what, Nicholas, as much as I'm writing this letter, and in total good faith, trying to really convince Tito Mboweni that he's got the support outside the ANC. But to be honest with you, practically, I don't think he's going to succeed, because for him to succeed with this program of doing the right things, the rule of law has got to apply. And as all of us are aware, more than 90% of ANC senior leadership are supposed to be in jail. The cases are as clear as daylight that they're not supposed to be outside jail. So the only way to support Tito Mboweni would mean that they've got to really change their suits for the green the overalls to go into prison. So I guess, and I doubt that he's going to get the support. But at the same time, I'd really like to really send it into their consciousness, because it appears to me that the ANC's consciousness is completely dead. You know, they're just really focused on looting state resources without realizing that state resources comes from taxes. And when you destroy the economy, therefore you destroy what you want to really steal. So I really personally doubt that he will get the support of the ANC. But fortunately enough, what for me it's important is to wake civil society up, because South Africans also, we've got to take the responsibility. More especially big business. Big business has to take the responsibility, because they have been the ones responsible, more especially for supporting Cyril Ramaphosa. When personally, I warned them before Cyril was elected as the ANC deputy president in 2017. I warned everyone about Cyril to be the wrong leader. I warned just over 9 million South Africans who voted for the ANC. I warned them also to, you know, because they did exactly what they did with Jacob Zuma. You can imagine in 2007 with Jacob Zuma elected in Polokwane as the president of the country, at the time facing massive criminal charges, 800 and whatever cases. And I was totally shocked when in 2009, civil society, 69% of the electorate voted for this man facing so many criminal charges. Repeating it again in 2014, 62%. Yes, it dropped by a mere 5% to 62%, but still voted Jacob Zuma back into power. And with Cyril Ramaphosa, I cannot understand how anyone would have supported Cyril Ramaphosa, because Cyril Ramaphosa has been on the NEC since 1994. So he's been part of this mismanagement of our country, literally from even pre-1994. So why big business decided to really support him, and some of the big business, they still keep supporting him. I find it actually quite disturbing. There's a reason for this letter, so that I think all of us as South Africans, as much as we can blame the ANC, but I think all of us as civil society needs to really stand up to protect our country while our constitution is still in place.
So, Mr. Mashaba, we'll get to some of Tito Mboweni's ideas around international funding by the likes of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank to try and assist in not only the recovery that South Africa will need economically, but also to fight the COVID-19 virus. But let's talk about your current realm, all right? Let's talk about opposition politics. Before you talk to us about the People's Dialogue and what perhaps you would do if you were leading at this point in time, how you try and address the crisis differently. Talk to us about the opposition politics that we've seen. In many ways, it was a bonanza for opposition politics during the Zuma years, the gift that keeps on giving, so to speak. But opposition politics seem a little bit flat-footed since Cyril Ramaphosa became president. And even though government could arguably be seen to be making so many mistakes now, the opposition, the Democratic Alliance, as well as smaller opposition parties, they themselves are open up to criticism for not being able to offer a viable alternative. What's your take?
Well, the very good question, Nicholas, because I never thought in my wildest life that one day I'll take a decision to be a public servant. When I realized my country gradually collapsing, looking at what happened to Zimbabwe, before 1994, from 1990, from the time when FW de Klerk released political prisoners and unbanned political parties. During those CODESA days, I was already doing business in Zimbabwe, in Southern Africa, including Zimbabwe. And I managed to really convince my family that we move our manufacturing, move the family to Harare, because at the time Zimbabwe was doing exceptionally well. We had cranes, you had everything positive happening in Zimbabwe. And I never thought that CODESA will bring peaceful outcomes. You know, fortunate for me, as much as I'm a independent thinker, there's certain things I have no control over. For some reason, God decided you're not going to Zimbabwe. Some criminal elements on the 17th of November, 1993, torched my factory. And that obviously made me to change my mind, because I had to now focus on rebuilding my factory on the eve of elections. And then 27th of April, 1994, elections happened under Nelson Mandela. The first time in my life as a human being, as a Black person, I felt great to really have a citizenship of a country, proud nation. I felt every time we became the envy of the world, as you're aware. A few years down the line, Zimbabwe collapsed. And with the Thabo Mbeki's support and the ANC. So when I began to realize South Africa collapsing, I realized, my goodness, running away is no longer an option. The only thing is actually to participate. I voted for the ANC twice, in 1994 and 1999 for Thabo Mbeki. And during his second term, already, I'd already distanced myself from the ANC. I've never in my life belonged to any political party. And then I looked for options, voted for the Democratic Alliance, until after the 2014 elections, when for the first time I decided to really make a statement to South Africans. I joined took membership of the DA and issued a statement. And why I took this decision was to send a signal to the Black youth in particular, that please, let us not vote for political parties on the basis of color or race, or because they look like us. Let's vote for political parties on the basis of what they stand for. And obviously that gave an impression to the DA that they could approach me. When we were approaching the 2016 local government elections, late 2015, the DA approached me to be their mayoral candidate. After many months of persuasion, eventually I conceded, because I realized their candidates were not going to be able to take the ANC head on, because I'd already made it clear as a South African, and a Black one for that matter, that for as long as we've got the ANC in power, this country is going to collapse. And I look at the DA over the 3 years of my administration. It was actually quite disappointing for me that they became the most difficult partner. You can imagine I take over an administration of the city of Johannesburg after 20 odd years of ANC mismanagement of that city. That 26 years ago, that city used to be one of the modern cities in the world. Today, that city is a slum, with the ANC working in that city for many years, province. Because I remember one of the meetings I had with the premier when I was selling the idea of taking back this properties to offer them to the private sector. I said to him, the premier, you've been working, you were born in this area, you worked in this city. You know it prior to 1994. I don't understand how you people allowed it to be taken over by the criminal syndicates. But what I find difficult to go direct to your question is why even the DA appears to be no longer interested in government. they're happy to really give this responsibility to the ANC. As much as the ANC is destroying, I had really very serious challenges with them. Regarding the inequality in our country. As I said at the time, as a DA member, said we've got an identity crisis. Black people are too scared to vote for us because they take us to be a white party. And the only way we can address it is not going to be political rhetoric of one South Africa for all. Yes, it's a good statement, but you've got to back it with action. And the reason why, obviously, I left the DA was precisely because the DA and I, some people in the DA, we are not on the same page regarding addressing a non-racial South Africa. That is why they started attacking the Muslim Maimani and for attacking Cyril, you know. So these are things, some of the things that are really quite concerning. What is actually quite interesting, I don't know if you are aware, there's a book that's going to be hitting the stores in a few days' time. Are you aware there's a book called The Accidental Mayor that's going to be hitting the stores in a few days' time?
I didn't know that it would be hitting the stores in a couple of days' time, but you have spoken to me about it before. Accidental Mayor being... Yeah, it's not showing up on the screen due to your background there, Mayor. But I know that it's your memoir from your time as Mayor of Johannesburg. There we go.
Yeah, there's a book. There's a book called The Accidental Mayor. To watch Carte Blanche on Sunday, and I'm sure yes, it's going to be covered by all the newspapers. And in fact, if I'm not wrong, Penguin, because they are the publishers, they're going to start promoting it this week. We are launching it next week, Thursday, next week on the 11th. But it'll already be in the stores. I think in this book, it talks about, it relates to the 3 years of my administration and how DA became a difficult partner, did not really buy into my proper approach to address the inequality in the country. And the book speaks about the deep-rooted corruption of the ANC with evidence and the names. So you're going to be shocked. This book is going to cause some people they'll have nowhere to hide, because I've got more than enough evidence of their corruption that I've uncovered in the city of Johannesburg, how our criminal justice system is dysfunctional. It is there to protect the ANC and not to really protect civil society. How the criminal justice system, in fact, I called it the weaponization of state institutions against me. So instead of the criminal justice system working with me as the mayor, to clean up our city, then ANC decided to use from the public protector to the MPA, the Hawks, everyone to be against me. But fortunately enough, I live in a democratic country, and no one is going to silence me and come out with fabricated allegations, because with mine I provide evidence. In theirs, you can see it's a Soviet Union type of propaganda to insult and discredit you. So I'm not that kind of person, because you try and really attack me on unfounded issues. That's when you make me more resolute, more determined actually to really fight. So for me, the DA has really been a disappointment. I mean, the EFF, as you heard over the weekend with Malema, as far as is concerned, the economy, it's white, therefore it must be destroyed. But funny enough, and you'll read in the book that the EFF, as much as they were not our official coalition partner, they supported my policies. They were honestly the most supportive be a partner in the arrangement. As much as they would insult me out in public, in council, but when it comes to service delivery, to ensure that we can revive our city economically and otherwise, they were the most supportive of all the parties. There's something that I find strange that with them that they can really support you to deliver. But also at the same time, what it does, it has given me an opportunity to explain to South Africans, because coalition arrangements are the future of this country. And if you look at local government, unlike national government, it's not about policies. Local government, it's about ensuring that people have got water, they've got electricity, there's safety and so forth. Whereas at national government, because I can tell you, I would work going forward because with our new party, we are going to contest the 3 metros in Gauteng.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up your new party here. The People's Dialog has been with us for several months now. Talk to us about the decision to form the People's Dialog and what it offers, not only the people of Johannesburg, but the people of South Africa.
Well, what happened is when I made the announcement on the 21st of October last year that I'm resigning from the DA, therefore resigning from the mayorship of City of Johannesburg, there was a national outcry. Some people asking me to stay with the DA, which was not really possible because there's just no way that I would want to associate with parties that does not really buy into a united one South Africa. I don't want to be associated with a party like that. And then the other people were saying I must start a political party, my own political party. So I then said, what do I do here? We're in trouble. And I realized that 2021 is around the corner. Who am I going to vote for? Myself. Because one thing the people will learn about me, I'm a very selfish person. Every time, whatever I do, Herman Mashaba comes first. Because when Herman Mashaba looks after himself, people around him are safe. My family is safe, so everyone it's actually quite safe. I said to myself, my goodness, who am I going to vote for? But I said, let me just test to see if all these people who are saying that I must form a political party, because going to the ADA is out of the question. So let me see if there's an appetite to form a political party. But I wanted to achieve 2 things. Firstly, I wanted to find out from South Africans if we share the same values. For me, we share the core values, because we don't want to form a political party only to find that people who wanted to form a political party want you to pursue the communist kind of an approach, or they want a country with no borders and so forth. So I wanted to test the core values with South Africans if we agree. Secondly, I wanted to make sure that I've got the support. So those are 2 things that I wanted to support. And we started the engagement to launch the People's Dialogue on the 6th of December last year to run until February of this year. As you are aware, I released the final report, 3 weeks ago. I was supposed to have released it on the 24th of March, but because of the lockdown, we had to really think on how to present it to society. And that's when we discovered that we can actually effectively still launch through this type of platform. The core values of our political parties that people have agreed. Firstly, when I got my family to put money behind this project, I said to myself, if I can get a mandate from 500,000 South Africans, would really be a good sample to start. I'm glad we received 2.4 million submissions.
Wow.
2.4 million submissions of people who says, please form a political party. We've got it in writing. This is not the pie in the sky 2.4 million. We reached 33 million South Africans. 2.4 million have submitted. And some of the submissions, 125,000 of the submissions are 10 to 12 page submission. One person giving us 10 to 12 pages. So it's not just really one saying, please, we support your move to form a political party. We agree with these core values. So we've now, I've got 2.4 million South Africans who've given me the mandate to form a political party. But what is more important are the 5 core values that these 2.4 million South Africans fully support without any doubt. The first one is that the South Africans are looking for a party that would pursue non-racialism, not to really take it for granted. They don't want someone who just talks about non-racialism. They want someone who can ensure that we work on programs to ensure that we promote non-racialism in a country in a practical way. Secondly, South Africans want a free market economy. They want an economy driven by the private sector, particularly small businesses. The government's role is to come out with laws that are equitable and fair for all South Africans to really be the players. So, South Africans believe in social justice. This inequality that the 300 years of apartheid and colonialism, 26 years of ANC failures, people want to see a party that can drive South Africa so that 15, 20 years down the line, we must have a big percentage of our population must be the middle class. So it must not really be something that we go to church on Sunday and hope that it'll happen. So they want the party that must drive to ensure that we drive a strong middle class. And the reason why people want a strong middle class, because a strong middle class can't just be a voting cattle, like how the ANC wanted, So, because the middle class will be educated, they'll question, you can't just really take them for granted. So, people wants to see a party that within the next 15 to 20 years, we really work towards the creation of the middle class. South Africans want the rule of law. I mean, South Africans have been traumatized by the level of crime, level of corruption, mismanagement with no consequences. So they want a political party that must ensure that there's a rule of law, because all these 3 things that are the 3 core values I've spoken about, without the rule of law, you're not going to, nothing is not going to happen. No ways you can build an economy in an environment of chaos. Economy growth requires the rule of law. Lastly, South Africans want a political party that must practice or fight for the electoral reforms. South Africans are sick and tired. That's why almost 19 million South Africans did not vote at the last elections. They want, starting from the ward councillor up to the president, people of South Africa wants to really be the ones directly electing the ward councillor, someone who goes into the province, or someone who goes into into parliament. So South Africans are sick and tired, and in fact, they don't want the system any longer where political parties decide on public representatives behind closed doors. And I've given them the commitment that with our political party that we are launching now in August, in the municipalities where we are going to contest, you will see long before the actual elections themselves, every ward council, every ward in this municipalities, we are already at a very advanced stage. We're putting systems in place where we are going to present ward councillors for every ward in where we are going to compete. And these ward councillors, we're going to subject them to the community in that area to decide who must be the ward councillor. It's not going to be the us as a political parties deciding who must be the ward councillor for the particular area. Yes, this person will be representing our party, but we are going to give the powers to civil society to be the ones deciding who must be the ward councillors. In 2024, to be a member of parliament, you are going to be elected also by the community to go and represent them in parliament. So the days when political parties can decide on public representatives behind closed doors, those days are gone. And one thing that we feel delighted about is the fact that we don't have to wait for legislation to change. We can practice that system now. We are going to have primaries like what is happening in the United States and other developed democracies. So you can be rest assured in municipalities where we're going to contest. You are going to really decide who becomes your ward councillor, so that by the time you go to the real elections, you know already you'll wake up in the morning to go out and vote. And the beauty about it, Nicholas, is the fact that of the 2 million people that gave us submissions, a big percentage of them are people who did not vote at the last elections. And these are educated middle-class South Africans.
So let's talk about these core values of the People's Dialogue as we delve into what you actually have to offer the people of South Africa. Let's talk about non-racialism and social justice. South Africa, one of the most unequal societies on earth. You say that a core value of your party is going to be non-racialism and social justice. Some people believe that the two are mutually exclusive, in that we need to accept that non-racialism works up until a point, but we need race-based policies to try and undo the race-based policies of apartheid that saw the vast majority of South Africans, Black South Africans, being relegated to a life of poverty and desperation due to inequalities in education, inequalities in the job market itself.
You know, Nicholas, I can share something that can be backed up by Itron Liebenberg, who happened to meet in the 80s, around about 86, 87, during the dark days of PW Botch's government. When I started working with the SAPC, asked Itron, who was my partner, or partners. So I've got experience of actually, I started a non-racial economy in the dark days of this country's history. Because at the time when I started business, me as a Black person, I was not allowed to go into business. But I decided that PW Bot is not going to determine my destiny. And I wanted to go into manufacturing. I did not have the technical know-how. I did not need any government, the government of South Africa or Botswana or whatever, to tell me who my partners must be. I approached a white Afrikaner called Johan Grill from Boksburg. Johan discovered to really be a great South African with the type of skill that I needed. And Johan needed me because I was a top salesman. I could sell those products in a market that was growing at a phenomenal rate. Few years later, by 1989, I got an Indian guy who used to be our auditor, bought his auditing firm because I needed a strong financial director because our business was growing. So by the time 1994, I was running a 6,000 square meter factory, state of the art, did not owe anybody for it. The directors, shareholders of this business, employees, right in Mabopane, in the township, supplying products, not just in South Africa, supplying the entire African, Southern Africa and other parts of the world. The shareholders went Black. As much as the idea was mine in 1984, when I conceived the idea of starting a cosmetic business. When I started my business, I only had 25% shareholding in the business. I brought in other like-minded South Africans to really join me on this journey. And I did not really I wasn't selecting my partners on the basis of color or race or anything else. I was selecting my partners on the basis of what value we can work together as South Africans. So I've got practical experience with evidence of people who've seen this. As I say, Itron is one of the people that probably we must have been a shock to the system at the SABC. But fortunately, and one thing that also I can guarantee, and I wrote it in my first book called Black Like You, my autobiography. I talk about Itron and the team at the SABC, because we can imagine at the SABC at the time, we were concerned about the Bruder Bond and how the government was going to attack us. And I can tell you, I found the people at the SABC. There was this lady who was the head of it, and her husband, I forgot her name. Great human beings that worked with us. We supported the SABC. They needed money. They needed the money to be able to do other things, but in the process gave us a coverage with no favors. Working with the SABC over the years until 1994, no one ever asked me for a cold drink. And 1994 came. Now you ask yourself, how come my relationship with the SABC stopped? Because a few years down the line, the new management came and people started asking for this and that on the sites, and decided to distance myself from this. So I'm saying is, we can have the laws to run this process, but I think for me the success is not going to depend on force. It's going to depend on incentives. Even if for some reason we will have legislation to ensure that we encourage an inclusive economy, I can tell you I will only accept it on the basis that this legislation works on the basis of equitable legislation and incentive. But
Mr. Mashaba,
but these are the things that.
Sorry, Nicholas and Mr. Mashaba. Marlene would like to go. She needs to go, unfortunately, but she would like to ask Mr. Mashaba a question. So if I can interrupt you, I'm sure you'll stick to what you wanted to say. Is that fine? Sorry about that.
No, by all means, go ahead.
Thanks, Marlene.
You've got to, which Marlene? Is it Marlene Leroux or Marlene, the other one where we can't see the face? You've got to unmute them. Marlene, you've got to unmute yourself. You are muted.
Okay.
No, still muted. Which Marlene? I see there's two Marlenes.
Yeah. Let me just see. I've unmuted her. I don't know why we can't hear her.
But no, but it shows on the screen is still muted.
Yes.
You see, there's a mute on the left-hand side, at the bottom left-hand side.
Yeah.
You press that mute or unmute. You can unmute yourself.
Marlene, could you try and unmute yourself there? I've done it for you, but it doesn't show.
At the left-hand bottom side, it's the first one on the bottom side. There's that mute icon.
Okay, can you? Unmute. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Yes. Hi, Mr. Mashaba. Can you hear me now? Yes, we hear you. Okay. I think it's very important also to state for me is that we had a long relationship with the Field Band Foundation with youth development as per se. And it was based on social development. And it was based on young people's development. And it was about new citizenship. And that was a very important process that we were part of. I think with COVID-19 was the big reveal of our really the imbalance in our society as well. And I've been listening now, and I've social justice, non-racism, but my big concern is, as you said, was the small and medium enterprises on the ground. That is number one. And the clarity that we need to have there for communities to build and how we can support each other. But the second thing is also the social justice with persons with disabilities. I think it's extremely important that when we look at persons with disabilities, it's also important to say we need to unpack that as a nation. My biggest concern is that I want to pose to you also, Mr. Mashaba, is that we are, and I don't want to play politics at all. We currently, because I'm working on the ground in the field at this particular stage, is the capacity. And you're realizing at this particular stage that just looking at the testing centers, who is ready and who is not ready. And that is the concern that I'm currently having of the practical, just practical issues that we're currently having, and how can we bring, which I firmly believe our young people can play a role. Both of us are involved in youth development. Why not bringing them on board and tell them this is what you can give back, and not just have a central space where all decisions are currently being made?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Colleagues, I wonder if you are aware, last week, Friday, embarked on a huge project where we are inviting South Africans with different skills to participate in small groups in platforms like this. I've got a policy unit that, as part of our policy formulations, where we want to get inputs from South Africa, because right now we've got a bigger picture or broader picture of the core values. Now we want to go deep into those core values. And we believe, do we have the answers? We absolutely don't really have. The answers are lying with South Africans, are the ones that can obviously assist us as a party, because I want on the in end of August, when I launch the party, I must launch a party with contributions from South Africans. So I don't know if you're aware of this campaign that I'm running. There are people, we've got a website where you are invited, whether you're a person of disability or you're someone in education, you're a retired judge and so forth. We want to really make sure that, yes, we've got our own ideas, but ultimately we want our policies, these core 5 values, we want them to actually incorporate what civil society is going to do, if they expect from us. In fact, Marlene, there's a guy, I don't know if you know him, called Ari something.
Yes, from the quadriplegic, yes.
Yes, he's obviously a big friend of mine, and we've spoken about this. So we are going to put together, we'll go have a session with a group on a platform like this. I won't be participating. I've got my policy unit teams that are going to obviously get together with you, say what are the issues and how can you guide us to ensure that whatever policies that we come out with, they actually speak to you. The head of our policy, it's a great South Africans called Andre Kutsie. Andre comes from the DA for many years, highly educated young man from Stellenbosch, and he used to be my head of policy when I was in the city of Johannesburg. When I started having issues with the DA, with the policies that we were putting forward, Andre felt really, because he was the one actually driving policies that can actually create the South Africa that future generation would want. So he left with me. So he heads my policy unit. So he's the one that is going to be engaging the different groups. So be like you said, so people with disability, is it the youth? Is it academic people? Is it going to be the rule of law with the judges and the lawyers? It's going to be with teachers, principals, and so forth. So we are going to really still unpack this But Nicholas, to answer your issues, right now we people are registering. I think in another week or so, that's when we will start those engagements. But those engagements will be with specialists in a particular subject matter. Let's say like I said, I've given examples. Be immigration. We'll get people who've got international experience, how we can ensure that South Africa, because this country was built at the back of migrants, and we want to continue. But we must obviously really make sure that that people come into South Africa and they must come here legally. And when they are here, they must respect our laws. And for those who are running away from their governments and so forth, we've got to come out with the systems and policies that we can protect them. But we cannot allow criminal syndicates to take over our country and tell us South Africa must start the process of building one united South Africa. You know what? We're not going to really accept that. We want South Africa to continue with the process of bringing international skills, international money. But we cannot allow criminal syndicates to use South Africa as a base for their criminal activity. So we're going to be engaging professionals within the next 2 weeks. So I will be able to elaborate further in terms of our policy on the day in August. The day we'll announce the date closer to the time, the day when I launch the party, and we'll give you our blueprint. A blueprint informed by experts and ordinary South Africans.
Herman, then a final question from me, though, just so that we get an idea. I understand and respect that you want to formulate these policies with the input of all of your prospective members and as broad a base of South Africans as you can muster. But we're entering a era where government intervention in the economy is going to become very, very commonplace. I mean, you look at America alone, you have one of the most center of right economically presidents at the moment, Donald Trump. He has just signed off a stimulus package in which he demanded that his own name be on the checks that get sent to taxpayers as some sort of support and relief during the COVID-19 crisis. So maybe if there's just one policy direction that you can give for the People's Dialogue, how comfortable will you be with government intervention in economics and finance?
I think, Nicholas, I've already made it really very clear. That is why free market economy is a second core values. If you look at the core values, free market economy, it's a core value of what we stand for. So government role in the economy must be as minimal as possible. Come out with laws. Our role as government is to collect taxes from viable businesses, because you're not going to collect taxes if you don't have businesses that makes money. We must encourage our youth. You know, I'm a capitalist and I'm unapologetic about this. I've written a book called Capitalist Crusader. I'm a capitalist crusader. By nature, I was born a capitalist. And the only way capitalism can survive and capitalism with a soul is to ensure that we allow businesses to make money. I've worked with Marlene. Marlene, I'm sure you know my family's support of, as an example, the Free Market Foundation. Over the last almost 20 years, my family, even up to today, we put in millions into that organization in various ways. You know, I served that organization for many years. Started as a patron, became a director, and actually in Cape Town, that's when you guys put me as the chairperson because of my active role in civil society. But on Monday, I'm going to make money because if I don't make money, I won't be able to serve society. You know, so I like the capitalist system, but I think it's part of education, and you will see when we start going deep into education, we want to really emphasize that early stage of our education program to teach our kids the values. We must encourage them to be entrepreneurs, be doctors, be whatever, but they must also have a social conscience. And it must be something that is incorporated in our syllabus. You are muted.
Beg your pardon. I was just saying that it's been an illuminating conversation, and I've really enjoyed our time together on this webinar. I wish you the very best for the future, and I suppose we'll see you at the ballot box come elections next year.
No, thank you very much. Anyone else? I've got that. Are you happy with questions? Anyone else? If you do have, I still have another half an hour. But otherwise, if you're happy with my explanation, I hope you can really go out there. Let us save our country. Honestly, this is very serious. I know my kids don't have children as yet. I would really love to really see one day being a grandfather and to my grandchildren being in a better South Africa than the one I was born and raised into. And this can't just be one individual actually doing it. I need the entire civil society, who are those who obviously see the ills and the evil that is really happening, you know. So I hope I will have ambassadors, if obviously you share these core values, to go and actually promote it to save South Africa.
Thanks so much. Is there someone that would like to ask a question? If you can just raise your hand, then you can unmute yourself. Okay, thanks, Sandra.
Mr. Mashaba, thank you very much for your very enlightening talk. I would like to ask, you know, when apropos Marlene's question about the youth and how you can get people involved in all sorts of levels, you did mention a whole lot of things, and I just want to ask you, what would your stance be on the arts? Because my feeling is the arts and culture, for many years under previous governments, under this government, has never actually been given status, has never actually been given prominence. And we are still sitting with a society of people that live like from hand to mouth. And what would your party's stance be on arts and culture?
Well, unfortunately, looks like Marlene has already left, and she knows my commitment to the arts, and not started yesterday. I've been involved. I can give examples of arts programs where my family have been putting millions every year for many years. Obviously, with the Phil Ben Foundation, where Marlene used to really serve with us, and I was the chairman for many years. Some years ago, I don't know if you've ever heard of a program called the Black Like Us Art Exhibition. I was approached by the Watercolor Society to promote this talented black artist who did not know how to commercialize their work. And I was approached by the Watercolor Society, Maureen Gibson, and to sponsor this program. When we started the first year, we had 14 participants. By the 10th year, because I gave this a 10-year program, on the last year, after 10 years of sponsorship of this, we had 86 artists. What we used to do with them every year for the entire month, the Watercolor Society will make the gallery available. We have a big launch working with the media and so forth, promote. And these guys, some of these guys today, they've had an opportunity to travel the world. Some of them they've got their own studios. Before this, they didn't really know that the art can actually be business and really be a critical value to society. When I was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, the first budget program, during the adjustment budget, I was hardly 6 months into government, going out with the officials to really look at their budget and the adjustment and so forth. I brought back the Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra. I brought back the Joburg Arts, what you call it, you know, during the adjustment budget, because those two programs were very crucial to me. the Phil Ben Foundation, because that's been, Malin can tell you how powerful this program is. There's already reached close to 100,000 kids over the last, over 20 years, working with the Norwegians in particular, and a lot of other big businesses in this country. I remember actually while social development of the city of Johannesburg was presenting their programs, and you can see their programs were just vanity projects. I suggested to them, obviously I had already resigned from the Phil Ben Foundation. I told them about the story of this program, working with the young black kids coming from broken families, single child-headed household and so forth, the intervention and the successes of this. And I advised social development, I said, please look at this, go and talk to this, go and have a look at this program. And 6 months later, I came back with a report being happy and recommending that we support this program. But it is very interesting. It's a kind of program where today the public protector, the NPA, everyone, because the ANC believes that that I was corrupt. I gave money to my own to my own foundation, and this is not my own. This foundation was started by the PG, and this was. I related this to 130 people. It was not like something I discussed in close corners. Social development, when they were presenting, I told them the power of the arts, what it can do, and giving them example. I said, I had the privilege of saving this. Please, I would really, as part of what you are doing, please have a look at this. But obviously, the director of this social development, few months into our government, we discovered he was one of the corrupt people, and they got rid of him. And then he went to the ANC, reported that I manipulated that the city of Johannesburg must support this NGO, and they called it my own NGO, and the public protector, even up to today, still harassing me. The NPA, the Hawks, they put some of their senior investigators behind this so that they can find something against me. So the answer for me is really very crucial. I'm not just really talking about the power of the arts. I've been the supporter of financial supporter of the arts for many years. So very crucial. But please, Sandra, I would urge you to please register on our website when we discuss the role of the arts, so that you can really give your own inputs, how you can assist our policy unit guys.
Thank you very much. I will do that indeed, because I do have some thoughts, but I have to go as well now. But I do have some thoughts on a much wider policy and how one can actually create sustainability in the arts, because that's a big problem at the moment. It's all very well funding projects, but you actually create a much bigger overarching plan in which you can guarantee the sustainability of arts and artists. But thank you for your time.
Yeah, please, please let us not really solve this problem on a platform like this or at dinner tables. I've given South Africans an opportunity to really give real inputs, and we're taking this matter seriously. So I'm now really demanding you to please go and register, go and participate. It'll be Andre's still really deciding. Actually, we've got a Zoom meeting at 2 o'clock to really give us an update how big groups he's going to be handling. So you can register. I think we'll only start addressing the different groups from next week or so, because we wanted to give the process at least 2 weeks to give enough people enough time to register.
Right. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Sandra. You need to go, Sandra?
Yeah, I need to go.
Okay, and I know Nicholas is also in a rush to another meeting, but he wanted to say goodbye.
And Itron also would like to ask a question once he's said goodbye.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Former Mayor Mashaba, I wish you the best of luck and strength to your attempts to try and build a political movement. We always need more voices on the South African political landscape. The political ecosystem always needs fertilizing, and I look forward to the ideas that come out of the People's Dialogue, and I wish you the very, very, very best of luck for the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, May Itron?
Yes, can I have a word?
Yes, Etron.
Herman, thanks very much to referring to the days of educating the masses by way of using television programs. It was a wonderful experience, and I echo what you say. Now, at this stage of my life, I've been accidentally forced into the education arena again by giving homeschooling to my grandchildren. And I'm personally fully aware of the unsettling situation, of the concern of a little grade 2 girl and a grade 7 boy for not knowing where are they going, what's going to happen. And it really puts them on a very, very difficult foot. I want to ask you, what do you plan to improve the educational process in South Africa, which is appalling at the moment, and pulling down what's right and not putting right what's wrong? Thank you.
Thank you, Itron. Can I please refer you also to our platform, because as you remember, I said education is actually one of the key components. In fact, if you look at the letter that I wrote to Tito yesterday, I don't know if you've already had sight of that letter. Please read that letter to see the importance I put on education. However, I'm not an educational expert. You remember when we wanted to use education those years, you were crucial in this. I would really urge and really plead with the people with such enormous expertise to please spend that hour or two with Andre and his team to assist in guiding them what went wrong and how we can actually correct it. We don't have the answers, but one thing I know is that our education system needs a serious overhaul because ANC was determined to destroy it. That is why I've said unapologetically over the years that ANC is determined to deprive the black youth the education. Fortunately, our white counterparts can afford to go into private schools, or their schools were reasonably functioning. But if you look at what ANC is doing right now, more especially in Hanoi, in Gauteng with Lesotho, they are determined to destroy the schooling and even in the so-called former white schools because kids are waking up in Soweto at 4 or 5 in the morning to travel to Randburg and everywhere. So if we're not going to remove ANC out of power, even the public schools in former white schools are going to be overcrowded, and Lesotho and the ANC are happy with that because they know you're not going to get education out of an environment like that. When we're supposed to have invested in the schools in Soweto and get some of our white counterparts with the right type of education who are committed, and I know thousands, if not millions, would really be willing to go and help in ensuring that people also, kids of Soweto, don't have to really travel, wake up at 4, leave home at 4 in the morning, at a child at 7, 8 years leaving home at when there's a school around the corner from their homes, that we can obviously use existing current structures, infrastructure and capacity and resources, so that in 10, 15, 20 years' time, these communities can be self-sufficient. But obviously ANC has now destroyed the schools in the townships and villages, Now they are busy now destroying the ones in previously the white communities. I mean, I live here in aTalk. I know one of my nephews many years ago did his matric at Greyston High School. It was still functional those years. And I look at it the last few years, every year you can see. Because the parents are looking for education for their children. So they send them from, so can you imagine a kid from Soweto traveling to Randburg or to here in Zenton, driving in the taxis because they've destroyed our rail network system, which was safe and running effectively in the past. Today, the trains are not really working and so forth. I cannot see the reason why kids must travel long distances to go to school when there are existing schools in the communities. Itron, I'm sure you know yourself. 80% of public schools in this country are dysfunctional. 80% of public schools. And SATU has been responsible, or is responsible. And SATU, who's SATU? SATU is government, is part of government. So please, I would appreciate if going to our website and participate in that panel to really assist our team in putting together a workable, viable education system that can work for future generations.
Thank you, will do.
No.
Can I say something?
Yes, Mr. Mashaba, Jan would like to ask you a question. Teresa, can you unmute him, or is he unmuted?
He's unmuted.
Right.
Hello, Mr. Mashaba. I want to ask you a question. I liked what I heard this morning. Your whole idea, your whole philosophy. And for me, it is very important, and it's something that I really think I would like to work out and ask you, how can I work and we can work out the strategy? Because it's very well just talking about this political party, but what kind of strategy have you got in mind so that one can reach the whole nation? And we will, COVID and Beyond will help you. And I have the platform www.foxwood.tv, which I want to use to actually help you to reach as many people as possible. Can you tell me what is your strategy?
Well, our strategy firstly was to start the People's Dialogue, which we launched on the 6th of December, so that we can get the mandate from South Africans to form a political party. Secondly, to agree on our core values. Now the report is out. I don't know if you've read our report, Jan. Now we're at a second stage, because August we're going to be launching the political party. Now we're busy putting together the blueprint for our political party that will be unveiled when we launch the political party in August. And we're asking for South Africans that believe that they've got something to offer to ensure that we succeed. The platform is there. We're always looking for people wanting to really work with us. We're a party, we're a voter or South African based, we put South Africans first, and we believe we want to be the party that is driven by what's actually coming out of society. You will see going forward, our political party is not going to be called the People's Dialogue. The People's Dialogue, we've already taken a decision. We are going to leave it as our policy unit to engage society, so that whatever policies that our political party adopts are informed by what society is actually looking for. So our platform is there. If you go into our website, you can contact us, and we can engage. And as you are aware, I don't know how many thousands of the requests that we get. What is actually quite interesting, Jan, is that while we inviting people to join us, one of the critical things that we need to manage is people who are sent into our party for wrong reasons. So we've got a very strong, obviously, unit and a team that's really working with me in terms of vetting and so forth to make sure that political parties with evil intent don't really come and disrupt us. So that's something that, it's up to people to really prove to us, and we've got a system to really make sure that people are not sent to us to come and disrupt. Because I'm sure you know what has happened in the past with political parties. If you are fast asleep, they will send someone within a week. There's already a scandal, but it's obviously a manufactured scandal. So we've got to we have to really manage that process very, very carefully, because the political environment can be a dirty environment sometimes. So, but we definitely encourage South Africans to really join us if they believe in what we are doing.
Shall we do this kind of webinar on a regular basis? Would you like that?
Absolutely, you're most welcome. Just under this lockdown, let's see in 14 days' time what's going to really happen, because as you are aware, the High Court yesterday declared these regulations to be unconstitutional. So my movement is very limited, so I use this type of platform to reach millions of people every day. So I am available. Even if after that, I think this is, for me, I found to really be one of the most powerful and cost-effective way of communication.
The two doctors there on my right-hand side, Dr. Susan Vosloo and Dr. Ferreira, who I work with on a regular basis with organ transplants. I'm sure they have also a couple of questions to ask you.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Thank you, Mr. Mashaba. I think as a responsible member of civil society, your comment that 90% of people in authority should be in jail for very clear reasons is really concerning. And our concern is really that many people in a position of authority has become extremely wealthy for delivering very little. And the next is that these people are also making the rules and have nothing to lose, is still paid their salaries, and there is no way of holding them accountable. So if one just looks at the capitalist versus the socialist philosophies, I think the capitalist philosophy can also be questioned just as a socialist philosophy. But the problem with socialism, to quote Margaret Thatcher, is that at some stage you run out of other people's money. Now, what I want to ask you is, how do you explain to society like us this absolute injustice where people that have squandered this country's money by looting, corruption, or just innocent mismanagement, if that accounts to 90% of people in authority, how do you explain that people are not brought to book for these things, but still our police can boast 230,000 arrests for what is now considered unconstitutional lockdown regulations? I think to regain the trust of society, this is one of the first obstacles that needs to be dealt with.
Well, absolutely, Teresa. I think that's why, as one of our key values, is the rule of law. And I think listening to me, I did indicate I'm a very strong believer in the rule of law. If you look at successful nations all over the world, no nation has ever succeeded without the application of the rule of law. So to succeed as society, the rule of law, it's really very crucial. That is why I've mentioned more than once to say that we want to really work with retired judges, policemen, magistrates, and so forth. I don't know if you're aware, one of the board members of the People's Dialogue, when serving with me, is the former Commissioner of Police in Gauteng, Lieutenant General Dialog. I don't know if you are aware. So General Dialog is actually one of the directors of the People's Dialogue. So she's going to be with Andre when we talk about the rule of law, assemble policemen who obviously have left the service over the last 26 years because of the ANC patronage and so forth, to really work with us to ensure that we can bring back the rule of law in our country.
Is there anyone else that has a question? No? Thanks. Then thank you, Mr. Mashaba.
I think it was an extraordinary interview. And I personally, and I'm sure on behalf of everybody else, I want to thank you from the depth of my heart. It was an incredibly well expressed interview, and thank you so much. Teresa, shall we, is everybody, will they signify in some way if they want us to continue, or shall we bring it to an end?
I also think Mr. Mashaba said that he hasn't got a lot of more time because he's got another meeting.
Right.
So, but I think everyone asked a question, and I think it should be fine. Yeah.
Teresa, what I would request all the participants, if they don't mind, if you can send me their email, their contact details, so that I can put them on my mailing list, because there's communication going out on a daily basis. Then we can put you guys on our mailing list so that you can see how we're progressing.
I'll certainly do that.
If you don't mind to hear that.
No problem. Okay. Thank you.
Just before we say goodbye, Mr. Mashaba, we'd like to, we recorded this interview and we'd like to place it onto foxwood.tv, the website, if we may. And listening to you, I think it will be a very good idea if we have it transcribed. And if I may use excerpts from it on my personal and on our business Facebook pages, I'd be very grateful. But shall I consult with you about that?
Well, Diane, please, you don't have to consult with me, because whatever we've really discussed here, I will discuss it on any given kind of platform. So even if I've said anything, whatever anybody would like to interpret it, please feel free to can quote me, as long as you are quoting me based on what I said.
Thank you so much.
So you don't really need my permission, as long as you don't misquote me, please. But if you, and obviously, even when you quote me, don't obviously really quote me on the basis of the media. Sometimes they just take one sentence. They don't take it in a broader context, so that they create a problem as propaganda. You know how people run propaganda. So I'm saying is, for me, I don't have a problem to quote me, as long as it is not going to be used for propaganda purposes. Just take one way to what one said, and then you blow it out as whatever, because I will defend myself.
Thank you.
As the media in this country, if there's one public official in this country, it's unfair media that uses the media as a propaganda tool, because they take you to just one sentence and they don't elaborate and take it out of proportion. They don't obviously give a broader picture of what I meant. So definitely for me, you don't have to consult with me.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So goodbye.
Okay, great. Thank you, and look forward to further engagements, and I'm looking forward to the list of the participants.
Certainly.
Just a minute, Anton wants to say something.
We have one participant who'd like to has something to say. Anton, you'd have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, there's a lot of echoing. I can't hear.
There you go.
No, I haven't got any questions. I just want to say thank you very much, and I'm excited about this, and we'll keep a close look at it, because I think the political landscape in this country definitely needs a movement like this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and enjoy reading the book, The Accidental Mayor.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.